Hi, everyone. So I'm Ruta Kadnoff. I'm a board member with Come Boating, and I recognize the vast majority of faces in this room. So I'm not going to belabor for too long the point of who Come Boating is. However, that is what I was asked to do for those of you who know less about us. So we are a nonprofit here in Belfast, a history of 25 years here in the community, and we are all about creating opportunities for people to get on the water in Cornish Pilot Gigs. It's too dark? No? Okay. Every year, we introduce scores of new people to rowing, ranging from teenagers to people in their 80s. And if you haven't been out rowing with us and are at all interested, I encourage you to try it. Our season for the summer will start Memorial Day weekend after these winter series are over. We participate in races around the Northeast and, of course, as you're all here to hear about tonight, internationally. And we host our own regatta here every August, which is always a lot of fun. Our real commitment is to make rowing available to everyone, not just the elite and wealthy that sport is sometimes associated with. And so we're really committed to ensuring that cost is not a barrier to getting on the water. That means that we're really relying on community support. Our only sources of funding are really our membership fees, which are very affordable. If you'd like to join, it's $35 for an individual and $60 for a family, and community donations. So if you are so inclined, we have a jar in the back of the room for donations, and you can always go on our website, comeboating.org, and click the donate button. And I'll just thank you all in advance for any support you're willing to offer us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carol to talk about tonight's program.
And I want to thank Brenda for partnering with us. We couldn't have done it without you, Mickey and I. Thank you. So before I introduce the Come Boating Championship team, I would like to tell you about the next two Come Boating Winter Series. On Tuesday, February 18th, we have Marcy Richardson, also a member of Come Boating and a part of the team that races in the Scilly Isles. Marcy is an avid knitter and owner of Elegant U. That's Elegant U Travel, which specializes in textiles-themed travel adventures. Her talk will feature the Faroe Islands, which is a collection of islands in the North Atlantic between the Iceland and Norway. These islands are known for their stunning beauty and rich Norse history. They are popular with hikers, birders, and especially fiber enthusiasts. And Marcy's right here. And check out our website at Elegant U. That's EWE. Okay. And that's February 18th. On March 18th, we will have Andrew Peters, a local Belfast scallop fisherman. And Andrew started Vertical Bay scallop farming in 2018. It's a new industry with lots of challenges. It tells us about its ear-hanging method of farming sea scallops. His story will give us an inside view of aquaculture in Maine. So check out his website at Vertical Bay, and that's on March 18th. And so now I'll let John Dillenbeck introduce you to the Come Boating International team.
All right, thank you. We're going to kick this off talking a little bit about the history of pilot gigs, and I'm pretty sure that most of you know what a pilot gig is. I see a lot of familiar faces here, but they're basically a 30-foot, 2-foot long boat, 4'10". Now, I say this because that's what most modern gigs are, but back in the day, in the late 1700s, early 1800s, they were of all shapes and sizes. You had different ones for different types of activities. Pilot gigs were used for transporting goods back and forth from islands. They were used as life-saving boats. And, oh, look, you can kind of read along with me. And importantly, they were also used to take pilots out to incoming vessels. The pilots, of course, knew their own harbors better than the other captains did. So they would go out there, they'd hop on the boat, they'd bring it in, getting around all the local obstacles. And of course, the first boat that would get out there would also get the contract. So that's how the racing part of pilot gig racing started. And they kind of went out of fashion around World War II because of the mechanization of vessels, but the racing kept going, and there were some core groups like in Newquay, Cadwith, and out on the Scillies that kind of kept that tradition going. So from the 1950s on, you could still find gig racing going on all around Cornwall, out maybe even all the way up into Devon and out on the Isles of Scilly. And this is what you would mostly see. These are the type of working boats that you would see, and you can see that they actually have sails with them. And some pilot gigs still are rigged for sailing. In the modern era, this boat right here, the Treffry, they basically, when it became more popular and they decided they were going to do races, they wanted all the boats to be very similar. So they chose this boat to be the model for all of the racing gigs. And this up here is still the Treffry, and it is still being raced to this day. This was built in 1838. And it's still been going. And I've been told that some of the planks are original still, which is kind of amazing. So the sport gained popularity all the way up until about 1990, when the very first World Pilot Gig Championships were held. The world part of it was questionable because it really was only Cornwall, Devon, and the Isles of Scilly. But that kept going. The very first year, there were 19 gigs that participated. When we went in 2018 for the very first time, there was 160. So what's this next one here? So we're going to talk a little bit about the race format. Also, I'm going to mention a little bit about the Isles of Scilly. I'd never heard of that place before until Malcolm Gator, who's sort of the patron saint of our racing program. He showed up in Belfast, saw some pilot gigs rowing around. He had been the harbor master at Newquay, and he had actually trained the women's pilot gig racing team there. And when he saw the pilot gigs, he said, "You people need to be racing these things." So he told us the techniques that we needed to know, how to actually make the boats move a little bit. And when I first encountered him, he told me about the World Pilot Gig Championship. I looked online, I found some pictures, and I was just amazed. And I knew from that moment on that we needed to get there. About a decade after that point, we finally made it around 2018. And we did very well. The men's team finished in Group G. I'll explain what that means. And the women's team finished 34th, I think, in Group C, which was amazing. They really didn't think that Americans could row, and we showed them that we could. So do we have a map? Let's go to the map here. All right. This is the Isles of Scilly. And the main land over here on the right-hand side, that's St. Mary's. And this is St. Agnes down here. And then over there is Tresco. You can see that all listed on the map. These are the race routes, actually, that we do. Let's go back to the format. Okay, so we start out with the St. Agnes race. That's a 1.6 nautical mile race. And you all line up on this massive start line. It's about 3/4 of a mile long. And it's slightly curved so that everybody has a straight line to the finish. And you have all these boats out there. Since we went in 2018, they pared it down. There were just too many people on the island. So instead of the 160 boats, they now allow 120 from the mainland. There's about 10 more legacy boats that are on the island. So you wind up with about 130 boats, all lined up on this huge starting line. You come in and the first 12 boats are in Group A. So the first 12 boats that finish are in Group A. The next 12 boats, Group B, and so on until you get down to the end. Then you do, so this, I kind of have to explain a little bit more about the whole procedure. There are 4 different categories. There's the open, which it means that any age can participate as long as you're over 18. Then there's vets, which is 40 and over. There's super vets, which is 50 and over. And then there's masters, which is 60 and over. That's brand new as of this last year. Some of us, of course, can, participate in all of those. So we went with 3 teams. We had a women's open, a men's open, and a super vets, right? Super vets. And so the race starts out here at St. Agnes, and then you go all the way up to that little turn there. That's off of a little buoy called the Newman. And then you turn there and head towards the quay in St. Mary's, which is right there at Hewtown. And that's the finish of that. That turn can be really treacherous because you've got 160 boats all converging on that one spot. And it usually winds up being pretty chaotic. A lot of boats run into each other. It's pretty exciting. And so you start out on Friday with the vets, super vets, and masters. They race their long race. And then on Saturday in the morning, they do the finals for all of those. And they only allow in those categories, only the top 12 teams get to actually do the last race for the finals. And then on Saturday afternoon, the men's open and the women's open start the St. Agnes race. They do that, and then you move on and you go to the Nut Rock race, which is over by Tresco. And that's a 1.1 nautical mile race. And it's basically a sprint, although it's a little long for a sprint, or at least it feels a little long for a sprint. And that's everybody. You start all the way out, I think this time in Group I, was it? Do anybody remember how far down it went? It doesn't really matter, although the men were down, you know. Well, that's coming up, yeah. All right, and I think that's it. So let's move on, and we're going to take you. Oh, by the way, this is the start line right here off of St. Agnes. So this gives you an idea of what you experience when you're on that line. And over on the far side, you can see a boat called the Verbena. That boat actually was purchased by a friend of ours and renamed the Lockie. And that's the boat that we actually rode. The Lockie. You can see our friend Ethan here getting intimate with the Lockie. And this is Steve Locke up here, right in the middle, holding the main flag that we brought to him as a gift. And yeah, so what else have we got on here? Oh, how we borrowed the gig? Okay, well, I think I just told you that basically. We met Steve, I think it was back in 2014 or so. We met him down in Gloucester. He came over with a team from Cornwall. Actually, it might have been from Devon, but we became fast friends because we love doing the same thing. And he has helped us out so much over the years. The first time we went in 2018, we wouldn't have been able to do it without him. And after he bought this boat, he told us at any time we want to use the boat and come over to the championships, let him know, and he'll let us use it. And there's the rudder for the boat. And yeah. Oh, yes, we had to modify the stretchers a little bit in the boat. And Tanya is there with a little bit of carpentry that she wound up doing in order to make everybody's legs fit comfortably onto it. This is loading. Huh? Oh, yes. During the 3 Nut Rock races, the first 2, you can actually advance your position. So if you finished in group, let's say C, and then you finish in the top 2 of group C, then you move to group B. But also, if you finish in the bottom 2, you move down to group D. So you're always trying to finish at the top until the very end. The very last one, you are where you are and you finish where you finish. So this is how you have to move the boats up and down. You have these little trolleys that you put underneath the boat, and they're very handy. They have very long beaches there when the tide goes out. So, and now we're going to move on to the Super Vets team, and they can talk about their adventure.
Testing. One thing that John didn't point to, oh, my name's Joanne Mosswild.
And I'm Marcy Richardson.
We are women's super vet Sierra Jackets. Um, one thing I wanted to point out that I don't think John mentioned is that one boat is shared by 3 teams. So between races, the boat had to come back to the beach, switch out teams, and then the boat gets rowed back out. So there's a lot of that back and forth. And there's a lot of teamwork, moving these boats up and down the beach at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, and between races. So, and all the different teams help each other, which was part of the fun, I think. So we're going to take you back to Belfast, Maine for just a minute, where we packed our bags and headed to Boston. I think, I guess we're having dinner in Boston here or something, and then took a late night, overnight flight to London. We had to take the bus down to Boston. So, that was pretty fun. As fun as it can be.
It really ended up being kind of a planes, trains, and automobiles and ferry kind of thing. It was interesting on one of my flights. I talked to a couple different couples from London, and I said, geez, we're going to the Scillies. Have you been there? Well, we don't go there. And I thought, well, why? Well, it's impossible to get there. We just can't deal with it. And by the end of the trip, I kind of understood a little bit. But anyway.
Yeah. So we're already in Penzance, but actually it took longer than that to get to Penzance.
It definitely did.
Because we had to go to Boston and fly overnight, and then we spent the night in London. And then in London, the next day we woke up and we met at the train station and took a long train ride to Penzance, which is at the southwestern tip of England, or this particular region of England. And arrived there. It was a beautiful train trip. And then we stayed at the Longboat Inn, which is just a few blocks up from the seaside. We went out and checked out the town. And then in the morning, we got on the epic Salonian boat, which Monica has a particular relationship with that boat. No, it's actually a really old boat. It was built in the 70s. And I thought that it had been maybe previously used for something else, but it was actually purpose-built to carry passengers and cargo out to the Scillies, which is about 2 hours and 45 minutes offshore, through whatever kind of seas there might be. So we got on this boat, but we were forewarned that sometimes people get sick on the boat because of the way it moves. And apparently, even though it's purpose-built for this reason, the hull design isn't very good. It's got a flat bottom and it kind of goes like this all the time. And that is a perfect recipe for feeling sick. And it was probably a little bit chilly. It was a beautiful day, but it was, it was kind of rough. And you can see that picture over there probably doesn't do justice to how big the waves were. I get seasick and I put on all the gear, the patch behind my ear and the pills and the wristbands. And it was all I could do to just sit there and feel okay.
I fortunately don't. That's me over there eating the pizza. I don't know what they're talking about.
But it was a beautiful trip, and
Oh, right. And as you can see here, we're loading on one of the gigs. They take all the gigs over, and I think they do like a couple each trip. So this starts like months ahead of time. It's really a big deal. So anyway, you can see that one's being loaded here.
Yeah, our gig, as you saw, Lockie lives out on the islands. So Lockie is that true? No, I'm wrong about that. It comes from Appledore. Okay, sorry, I'm wrong about that. Anyway, so yeah, it takes a long time to get all of those gigs plus a lot more out to the island. Let's see, what are we looking at here? I guess we're arriving in on St. Mary's, and it's a really festive setting. I mean, geez, all these boats and all these people, and it was very exciting. As soon as we got on the island, we could really tell we were in the right place.
And probably the only other transport really to mention is we weren't on the same island. We had to go stay at St. Martin's. So we had our own little private boat back and forth that would zip us back. It was lovely. We were nicknamed the Bond Girls because of it. But that was the other transportation. We were on that all the time back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And this picture, I believe, is from a church. Did someone say it's from a church? And everything about these islands is about rowing. Everything. And so this kid will grow up to be a rower, no doubt. So I think that's all we got. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
But now we're on to super vets.
Oh, okay.
Don't you go anywhere.
All right. I'm staying here.
So this is our super vets team. We've got Joanne here. I don't know that it matters where we rode. I was in seat 1. You were.
Well,
the stroke.
yeah, I mean, we all stay in the same seats the whole time because each seat is a unique experience
Right.
for the person. So, because you're on one side of the boat or the other, or position, different positions have different significance. So, at any rate, these are our positions, and those are the seats we stayed in.
Right. And a couple of us had really minimal rowing experience, I must say. I had only started rowing in August prior. And I think Adrian was also, she probably started around the same time I think I did. And so I had seen this call go out maybe in September, looking for participants to be on the Super Vets team. And I thought, oh, that'd be fun, but I don't qualify, clearly. And the following month, somebody approached me and says, "You don't understand, we're desperate."
It's kind of like, do you have a pulse? Would you like to row?
And so I had never played in competitive sports, anything. And I just started rowing and I loved it. And so I decided, okay, I'll go for it. But I really had to put myself on a pretty strict exercise regimen. I mean, I joined the Y. I hope there's other Y members here because what a great thing we have here in town, especially in the winter. And I started exercising. And I have to say, I feel so much better because of it. And so now even when the racing's done, I'm going to the Y, because I feel good. And for me, it was really life-changing. So
Well,
how about you? You've been boating forever.
It was pretty life-changing for me too. And I can say that I have been rowing with Come Boating since it started in 2000. And I learned a ton thanks to particularly Lee and Logan.
Our cox. I think she's here.
Logan's over
careful.
there. Logan was our cox. And I can tell you that I thought I knew how to row, but I didn't really know how to row until I started learning how to row to go fast. And so I had to, you're lucky you started out, you had no experience to draw from. I had to unlearn all my bad habits.
Yeah.
And it was really well worth it. I really loved it. So, and everybody came at it from a different space, but the important thing about a team is that you all kind of get together. You come from where you come from, and then you build a team and you move forward together. So that's what we did all winter long, is we rowed whenever the weather permitted, and Logan whipped us into shape pretty good.
She did. I think we feel very good how we did. We didn't have very high expectations, but we far exceeded where I thought we would end up.
Well, I just wanted to
you?
give a shout out to Ruta, who
Yes,
rode
subbed a
with
lot.
us a lot. When
Yeah.
somebody couldn't show up, Ruta always came and helped us out by filling in for training. So our experience at the Scillies, the water is bigger, the boat is different, the waves are bigger. And all of a sudden we felt like, oh, we don't know how to do this because everything was different, but we figured it out. And actually, I think the boat had a better balance than the boat in Belfast. So that was an advantage. And another shout out for Logan there. And there was always lots of fun running around town and buying things at shops.
Is that
And
bubbles?
there
Like
was a
sand?
bubble machine
Ah.
in town. It was very festive. And this is the scene that we saw every day. all these boats all day going in and out. And all of those boats were racing with 2 or 3 different teams each day. And there we are. We had a great time.
You know,
It
I
was
think
well
one of
worth
the
it.
things that really impressed me, I mean, there were a lot of men there too, but the women particularly, they were all tall and, you know, but there were a lot of older women, much old. I mean, I'm not old, but there were much older women. I mean, some in their 80s that clearly were healthy and happy, and they were very sharing. There was one team particularly. Do you remember the Magwitch ladies?
Oh, yeah.
We ended up, okay, so we were really neck and neck with Magwitch for quite a while, and we pulled ahead. But then we ended up riding with them on one of the harbor boats as we were watching the races, and they were just so nice. Invited us to their regatta.
Yeah, one thing I remember about watching the races, we were only in 2 races, and the rest of the time we were watching, and we got to go out on a launch that took people right along while the boats were racing. And I learned so much by being on that launch and talking to other racers, and they would watch the boats and they would tell me exactly what they were doing right and
Right.
what they were doing
It
wrong.
was
And
very interesting.
it was a really good experience for learning. And this picture demonstrates really just the teamwork. Everybody's always helping people move boats, because there's a lot of that to be done. Oh, these are the Dutch guys. They stayed on this other island in the same resort that we stayed in. And
They were very nice.
yeah, they were really nice and friendly, you know, and they were one of the few teams that were not from England. It was us and them, and I don't know, maybe I think that was kind of it. That made it international, you know. So we had nice camaraderie with them. And there was a lovely restaurant on the island that served you outside, and we went there a couple of times for lovely meals. That's on St. Mary's.
We
I mean,
actually
it's
did
on,
do a bit of
St.
work too.
Martin's.
We did, you know, I mean, we did go out and practice.
We did, we
did,
practiced a little bit, but it was mostly fun, I
but
think.
we had a lot of fun.
And that's at the hotel.
And we were treated so nicely. I think they thought we were somebody else. Like we were, oh, we had to have our pictures taken with them. They were just so nice to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
It's a lovely island. It's called Karma St. Martin is the resort where we were. And if you have any interest in going there for a holiday, I highly recommend it. There's your sunset.
Yeah.
So
It's
thank you.
lovely.
Go ahead.
I like it more with the way they did it, but that was fabulous presentation, ladies. Thank you. My name is Jeff Wallace. I was one of the lucky individuals to be on the men's team. Oh, okay, sorry. I too was one of the new rowers. I hadn't beat Marcy by much. She said August. I had started July there. So to find myself over in the Scillies just a few months later was an amazing experience. One thing I wanted to say before we got rolling here, John showed a picture of the start and talked about the long start at the beginning of the St. Agnes race. Lee R. Cox had mentioned to us and sent texts about visualizing the whole experience. And what that picture didn't really accurately portray, and what we had talked about during the training and stuff, were the different seas there, the swells. So when our race started, it was amazing. It was all those boats, like I think they said 130. But with the swell, the scene was constantly changing because between where we were going up and other boats going up. So it just, it was constant movement and stuff. It was a very cool experience. And with that, we found an alternate beach. They showed a picture in their slides of the main beach with the hustle and bustle, and this beach wound up filling up more than this, but it was a little bit quieter. And it was a wonderful place to launch from. This is us heading out for a practice run, and like was mentioned in the previous presentation, the teamwork of getting the boats in and out and swapped between races and practice sessions and stuff was all a very good experience. Oh, one thing too about this one that's fabulous. It's kind of hard to see here because they did wear off, but when we showed up there, they had made the oars fabulous. They put little stickers of Maine on the looms and out on the blades, and they were just so cool.
So we had a pretty good race. We started out in the open. I think we finished in around oh geez, what was it? H maybe?
84. So what's that?
And
7 letters.
yeah. And then we did the nut rock races, and we kind of went a little backwards after that. We dropped down a couple letters. We didn't totally get it together. Pilot gig racing is a very strange sport. These boats will move very fast if you row together. So the most important thing you can do is to have good swing, we call it, good timing and good motion. And we couldn't quite find that over the first couple of races that we did. But at the very last race, we got it together. We had a fantastic race. And we were really, really happy to have Lee Dorsey, who's right over here running the computer. She was our coach and our cox, and it was so wonderful to have her up there because you could always trust what she wanted to do, and it was really a wonderful experience, and we really appreciate you, by the way.
Thanks, John.
And it's no easy task to be a cox. There is so much going on. There's, all those boats and stuff, and there's radio chatter, and we're trying to start the race, and you're not trying to drift too far, but you don't want to be too far back, and you're racing in the women's race and coxing the men. So, I mean, you got a lot going on, and Lee did just an amazing job handling all of that.
Yeah, but actually both Lee and I switched positions. I was the cox for the women's team, and she was the stroke. So that's the number 6. That's what everybody else has to follow. And then she was the cox for the men's team, and I was the stroke. So we just kept switching back and forth. And yeah, it can be a little bit difficult. You'll see here the Bonnet, which is actually one of the legacy boats. Now, I said that everything was based on the Treff Rye, that everything had to be exactly the same as a Treff Rye, but there are these things called legacy boats that aren't. So the Bonnet is actually, I think, about 30 feet long. In 2023, I went over with Clark here, Clark Staples, and we took some other people from Maine and Vermont, and we raced in a boat that was only 28 feet long and about, I don't know, yeah, right. It felt like it was a bathtub, basically. And if you got into a wind, you could not go anywhere in that thing. But having the Lockie was fantastic this time. In the background is the Gibraltar, and this is the Royal Marines, which we wound up making pretty good friends with. They were a fun group. And what? Did we beat them? We beat the Marines.
It was good after a couple of races in the middle where we didn't do our best. It was great to finish the last one, to be actually passing. I had 2 or 3 boats on that last one. That was a great feeling for sure.
Yeah, well, and this is just what it looks like. It's kind of amazing to be over there and to be around so many people who love the sport that we love. Thousands of people there showing up, and you just see this. Like Marcy was saying, every day. This is just an amazing scene. There wound up being, well, this is probably going to be a little offensive to some. I don't know if I want to read it, but where is it? Right here.
Right there.
The Yankee Doodles, they are here. They've got a gig to ride in. It's old, it's slow, and it leaks. I think it's called, you can read the rest.
it was so cool to like some of the restaurants, and this was on a sign outside a shop and other places to be just to see others that were like psyched to see Americans was kind of cool, really.
This is the view from the house there. I think Ethan Clark and I stayed there, just looking out at this. And every night we would try to go to sleep to the sounds of an open mic that was taking place very close to where we were staying. And don't know quite how to describe it, except that they love American songs. They don't necessarily know all the words. And sometimes we just sing the same verse over and over again. And that was a pretty much nightly occurrence. When we had a little bit of downtime, we went over to the island Tresco and wandered around. This is actually on St. Martin's. They have one of the most beautiful beaches. Actually, this is rated as the greatest beach in all of the United Kingdom. Just incredible. This is on Tresco, and there's this amazing island garden. What was that called? I can't remember. Tresco Gardens. Well, that was simple.
So this place is amazing. I'd meant to get an exact number, but I forget. But how many hundreds of miles north of here that the Scillies is? And John, I think it's a little further than that, maybe. But it's to have palm trees and all that is just, it kind of blew my mind. And this was indeed, that was the most fabulous beach I've ever seen. And everyone who's seen the picture, it's like, why are you on your phone? I'm like, I wasn't, I was just trying to get a picture of it, but I didn't know either Clark or John was taking the picture, but the beach was amazing. I, just think back to that, taking my shoes off and walking on it, and I could instantly feel warmer and happy. And
so getting around the island, of course, you can take this, but the UK has got some very honest advertising for their services here. And yeah, they weren't very hostile, I will say.
their humor and hospitality and friendliness was just off the charts. It was amazing.
And of course, when you're when you're on the Isles of Scilly or in Cornwall, this is a Cornish pasty. And you have to say pasty, by the way. And it's basically a pie. And inside of there is some wonderful stuff. It's like a beef stew, basically. Pretty incredible. And this is what winds up being chanted every once in a while. Somebody just breaks it out. Somebody goes, Augie, Augie, Augie. And then Ben goes like that. So, yeah. And then I think we've got
You're going to tell about, sorry.
Lee, get up here.
I'm just going to butt in a little bit. I'm Lee. I do love pasties, but
They're
also
amazing.
I learned a cool piece of history at the raft up, at the men's raft up. The guys in the boat next to us explained Augie, 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 oi, 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 all comes down to pasties because they would, there's a big mining tradition in Cornwall, and the wives would make lunch that their husbands could eat easily while they were down in the mines. So they'd make these pasties. And then they would go to the opening of the mine, and this is legend, I don't know if it's true, but they would shout down the mine shaft, Augie, Augie, Augie. And if they heard back, oi, 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 that meant send down the pasty. So, yes. And we've been shouting Augie, 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 oi, oi, oi at the end of our races here in New England for years. And I don't think any of us ever knew that it was about pasties. So that's what I learned.
It's just just a little bit of a training road that we did when we were out there. And at the end of the final race, by the way, there's this incredible thing called the raft up. And that's where everybody, when you're done with your race and you start, like I said, all the way back on I, they would find a buoy and latch onto that. And then everybody else who came in would then get right up next to them until all of the boats were waiting for the very final race. And when the final group is coming in, Group A, everybody would put their oars up in the air and everybody would be singing. And this is probably one of the more amazing moments that I've ever been involved with. It's just incredible to be out there and to be with all those other boats. And yeah. And then there's a lot of drinking going on.
Yes, because the tradition is too, they pack some drinks to bring along for the raft up. But yeah, easily that raft up was like a top 10 life experience for me. It was amazing. And
These are the Marines, by the way. They're wearing our shirts. We traded them for these shirts right here. We really had a fun time with them. We did run into them a little bit later on in the evening. They were very inebriated, and we kind of just walked right by them. But we're hoping maybe sometime to bring them over. All right, now we're going to move on to the women's open team, and I just want to say, coxing this team was such an incredible honor. We did very well when we went in 2018. Like I said, we finished in Group C, 34th. This team of women is the best pilot gig team that the United States has ever put into a boat. I can guarantee you that. And the results that they achieved were just remarkable. So with that being said, I'm going to hand you off to Kelly and Abby.
Hi, I'm Kelly Sandman.
And I'm Abby Lown.
And I was thinking about this today. We are the bookends age-wise of the women's open team. I'm the oldest, she's the youngest. And we had so much fun in this whole experience. Although I want to say too, that before we even got there, I said to the whole team, you guys, I love you so much. And I've had so much fun preparing for this that if I get eaten by a shark before we even get there, it's totally worth it. And Abby looked at me and she said completely seriously, Kelly, it would be terrible if you got eaten by a shark. I would be so sad. And I was like, don't plan on it, Abby, thanks.
So unlike the super vets, we had, there were 9 of us vying for 6 spots in the boat when we decided we were forming a women's open team. So back in September of last year, we had to develop a selection process to decide who was going to be on this women's open team. And the selection process involved, we would go to the Y and pull a 2,000 meter erg time to see how long we could, or the time that it took to row 2,000 meters on the erg. We also were evaluated by many coxes within boating for our technique, form, timing, body mechanics. And at the end of sort of this trial period of about a month or so, we all voted on who we thought would be the best 6 rowers for the team. So we ended up with 6 of us. Our names are up there on the screen, and we launched into a very rigorous training program for the whole winter. And we took our training very seriously. In addition to usually 3 rows a week, barring any cancellations, we were erging, powerlifting at the Y, and then often doing high intensity interval training workouts in whoever's garage or basement we could find. Thank you to Monica for often offering us the warmth and yes, and beautiful workout space of her basement where we let out a lot of sweat and bonded as a team.
Yeah.
I think at the end of our training period, the winter was really the bulk of the experience for a lot of us. And for me, having a team to show up for and be accountable to was really the majority of the fun of the whole thing. And we bonded to each other over the course of that 7 months because we were really committed to doing well, and we were committed to each other and holding each other up.
Yeah, I've played a lot of team sports, and I've never been on a team like this where we were all so disciplined and dedicated and competitive, but then also kind and funny. So we had so much fun. And one of the ways that we channeled our competitiveness was that we actually had a spreadsheet, and we had like made a rule. Okay, you get so many points if you do this kind of workout. You get so many points if you do this. And we kept points versus like how much we worked out. And and you'd get points for like a 2K erg. And I don't know if it was this time, but there was a couple, somebody'd be like, I'm behind in points, or, oh, that she beat me in the erg by so many seconds. I'm going to do another one, because we did a monthly erg 2K, which that is not fun. It's not a fun experience. But I don't know.
Universally hated, not just by us, but
Yeah.
2K is one of the most, it's just a slog.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So during our winter training, am I jumping the gun on snow row? During our winter training, we also did the snow row, which takes place down in Massachusetts. And this is not the snow row, but not quite the snow row, but this is the snow row here. So that's us racing in the snow row. We were the first all women's team to win that race, and we set a course record. So we were pretty pleased about that.
And the course record was 30 minutes and 2 seconds. And no pilot gig has ever done the snow row course in less than 30 minutes. So that's still a goal of future teams, but we were really happy with our time there. And I think that doing so well in the snow row really galvanized our team and motivated us to just keep pushing for the few more months that we had before we traveled to the UK.
Also, shout out to Anna. She just started rowing, and she was on the team. She's so great. And that was her first race. The snow row was her very first race. So that was really fun.
Yeah, we have a video here of training on Penobscot Bay. And you can hear what's cool about training in Malcolm G. Is you can hear the wooden oars clicking on the wooden spool pins. That's kind of a unique sound that we don't get when we train in our fiberglass boats. We look pretty good. We look okay.
Yeah, this team was so remarkable. When we were off just by a little tiny bit, we were all like, oh, we need to pull it together. But then we had a reporter in our boat one time. He was writing an article about us. And we were all after the row saying, oh, I'm early and I can, this is not good. We need to work on this. We need to work on that. And then somebody, I think Tanya said, Kyle, how was your experience? And he said, it was like church. He said it was so amazing. You all were so together and so like peaceful while you were doing it. And we were all kind of like, that's really nice feedback to hear. Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, it was great.
Many of you know that the oars that most of the traditional pilot gig boats use have a round shaft. And before Boating purchased a set of round oars last year, we had always only practiced with these D-shaped oars that have a flat side that you sort of slide away from you on the recovery. And so we were only used to practicing with those. So it was also a learning curve to figure out how to use these round oars because there's no, there's no flat side to rest upon. So the hands have to kind of do all of the control and to keep the blade of the oar at the angle that you want when it drops into the water and throughout the whole stroke.
So we get to the Isles of Scilly, and like everybody else says, it was so beautiful. And we had to get used to the boat, the Lockie. So we had been training in Malcolm G, which is a wooden boat with thole-pins instead of oar locks. So we'd been training on that. And then we get into the Lockie, and even though we grew to love it, it was a tough transition. So as you saw, we were harvesting like scraps of lumber to try to make the stretchers work. And we went out on our first row with a cox named Chris, who had been either a rower or a cox in every single World Pilot Gig Championship. And she She diagnosed us fast. Like we started rowing and she was like, oh, you're doing that. You all need to work on this. And we were all like, oh my God. And then she was like kind of saying, oh, you're all faffing about, you're kind of like, messing with your seat. And we got back from that row. And she also like told us where all the landmarks were, what to look out for. She was so insightful. But some kind of almost too insightful. We got back to land like, oh my God, we don't know how to do this. So there was a little bit of overwhelm. But by I think our third practice row, because we had 4 total, I remember John going, oh, yeah, we're back. We're back. So we clicked by our 3rd or 4th practice row.
2 pointers that she gave us that still stick in my mind. One would be that she mentioned that you want to think of your hands as moving like a piston, like back and forth, perfectly straight on one plane. So I still think about that when I'm rowing now. And then I also remember her saying that at the finish, the hands should be right up at the chest, like between your boobs is what she said for women, for the ladies. And so anyway, her long experience coxing definitely was evident in her ability to just tell us like it was.
Yeah, great. So then we cheered on the super vets. They raced the day before the Friday. And then and we were like riding our bikes all over the island. And honestly, that was nerve wracking for me. Like I'd much rather be in the boat. I'm like riding around like, oh my God, look, oh my gosh, there's so many boats and the waves are so big. Ooh, this is really scary. And then you get out in the boat and reality hits that half the time you're like waiting to race as you're like, sitting in the boat. But the first race is the longest race and all the boats go out. And we got in the boat that morning and it was a thing of beauty. I remember Tanya telling me, Kelly, your timing is like, it's so perfect. And I was like, I'm retiring right now. Like that's the best thing ever. But we rode out and the day was beautiful and the ocean was really big, but it wasn't choppy like the harbor. It was big swells, so beautiful. And the sky was clear and the water is gorgeous. And I was actually like singing Elsie Guller's song, Dip and Sway, because I was so in love with the world. It was like a Disney movie and everybody was being very kind and not laughing at me. And I remember Lee saying, look, all of our gig sisters are out here. It's almost 1,000 rowers all in one race. It is remarkable. We talked about all the people that love us, that were supporting us, that were in the boat with us, like all of our training coxes, all of our family, like people who watched our kids, walked our dogs, like just all the support we had just to be there for that one race. And I felt like it just felt so connected to the whole universe. So you start at the beach and you row out to the start line and then you wait at the start line. And over the radio, they count down 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and so on. And then they say, go. And my vision went from like, I'm in love with the world to like my oar and Tanya's oar and Abby's oar and Logan's back. And I was just thinking smooth and fast. And that's all I had in my brain for however long it took us until I remember it narrows toward the end. So you start off in this long line, but then it narrows toward the finish line. And I started to see other boats in my periphery. And I had a moment of like, oh God. And then I thought, nope, John's got us. And we looked later on at GPS information and he steered us so straight and true. It was gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Another big difference rowing in the Scillies, for those of you who have rowed in races in New England and Eastern Mass, or in our own regatta, we just don't have nearly as many boats entered. So it's not uncommon to not have any boats around you while you're rowing a race. If you're way out ahead or behind or wherever you may be, it's just the sheer number of vessels that are out there is so much fewer. So rowing in the St. Agnes race and in our Nut Rock races, we were often so evenly matched with the boats around us that we're rowing in sync tightly, commonly having boats on either side of us. So we could really feel the competition that was, it was just, it's so much more motivating to pull when you have two boats on either side of you. And we don't get that race experience in New England all that often. Great.
Okay. I'll say too that we got through that whole race and I was just looking at backs and oars and backs and thinking, okay, just smooth and fast. And then at the end, John says, we did it. And I look up and I thought, holy smokes, there were over 100 boats behind us. So we finished 31st. So we were in the middle of C class. The second race, we had a rough start
29th in C class, right?
overall.
Oh, okay.
So the first race we ended 30th or 31st, and then we got placed in C class. We had a rough start the second race, but about halfway through, we just clicked. And I remember John going, yeah. And we just like motored in and flew past a bunch of boats and finished 5th. So then we were 29th overall. And then in the third Nut Rock race, we like got off the start line like we were off a slingshot and we came in 2nd. So then we were 26th overall. And then we were in B class. Oh, and I would also like to say we got over that starting line or the finish line at finishing 2nd. John's like this, like on the stern as our cocks. And Logan and I are ugly face crying in the back, like, oh my God, that's amazing. And, breathing. And then somebody else is going, can you believe it? Oh, we're like cursing. And then Tanya goes, that's exactly where I thought we'd finish. We were all like, we love you, Tanya. So then in the finals, we were in B class and it was so tight that we didn't know if we finished like 4th or 10th. And we finished 9th overall. So that we finished out of 133 or 32 boats, we finished
21st.
21st.
Yeah. Can we call up the rest of our team, the women's team? Can you all come up?
Here we all are. I love these women. Oh, one more thing. We're all competitive, but Tanya had a dream halfway through our training where we were doing terribly in the Scillies. And she's like, but then I remembered, oh, we love each other. It's okay. And we were like, you had that dream? So that's how much we like each other.
And we'll turn it over to Anna to talk a little about the Sportsmanship Award,
All right.
which was awarded to the entire club.
Yes. So you've heard the stories of all three teams at this point. In terms of how actual, awards are given out, the top finishers in each of the alphabet classes podium, essentially. So one of the great stories, just very quickly, that also for the women's team was that John asked us ahead of, I think, the final race or when we were still in C class, do you want to strategically try and podium at the top of C class, or do you want to go as far as you can? And collectively, without pause, all of the team were like, we want to go as far as we can. So as was explained at the very start, we moved up into B class and we kept going. But here are a whole bunch of photos after all the races are done. They have a massive sort of bash up at the end, back on shore. And that's where they hand out all the podium awards, but they also have a few extra awards. Unfortunately, the speakers were not very good. The Belfast Library, kudos. So we were all kind of milling about, but right towards the end, right after the Wooden Spoon Award, I sort of caught this one glimpse of fast. That's all I heard was fast. And nobody else was going up to the stage. So I kind of pushed through, climbed over boats, and got to the foot of the stage. And I said, did you just call Belfast? And they're like, yeah, you got the Sportsmanship Award. So I very excitedly got to claim that along with Logan, kind of saw us go up there. To this day, we don't exactly know what the Sportsmanship Award means, but it was awarded to all of us. And the story we're going to tell is that it was just due to the love, the excitement of all of our teams, of all of the crews, but also a fabulous group of support that we had from those who helped us here in Belfast, but also all the people who came out to the Scilly Isles with us, family members, friends, coaches. So it was just a really fabulous time. And again, getting to know and meet other teams. And again, just really leaning into the camaraderie. So yeah, on that note, I will leave it and we can take some questions. Oh, did we want to hand it over to Joanne? Okay, we'll take some questions. Not the audience not here. Oh, somebody else can walk. I don't need to stand here. Oh, sure, I'd love to. But you might have an answer. Can you see? Do you need more light? I have questions.
When are we going again?
Wonderful question.
Not this year. That's all I got.
I'm ready.
So who funded all this? Was this all self-funded? Did you get some of your funding from other sources?
Most of it was self-funded, but we did have a successful fundraising event last New Year's over at the American Legion. And we raised, I don't know how much money we raised, but a few $1,000s to help defray the travel costs. And then for the women's team only, we had a GoFundMe campaign, which many of our family and friends far and wide donated to. So that helped as well. But for the most part, it was all out of pocket. Yeah, we did.
Liked it all.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming out.